My name's Ruthy Doolittle and I'm a holistic therapist working with animals. I provide holistic animal care and animal communication. Today I want to talk to you about what holistic animal care is and talk to you about nutrition. But like everything with any sort of energetic type of work, everything is connected. So I'm just going to read a little quote to you from Pythagoras, and we will come back to this at the end of my little presentation. So animals share with us the privilege of having a soul. Just going to let that settle. Okay, so what is holistic animal care? So I just want a little show of hands. Who at home uses some sort of holistic care for themselves? Everybody in the room, amazing, okay. And who at home is using the same techniques or similar techniques for themselves as with their animals? So about half, yeah, okay, super. There's no right or wrong, and hopefully you'll pick up some bits today that you'll be able to take to your home, back to home as well for your animals. So what is holistic animal care? From my perspective, it's a combination of different things. I should perhaps tell you a little bit about me first of all. So Ruthy Doolittle, I've been a holistic therapist for 12 years and I started off with people. My first modality was aromatherapy and I've moved through into energy work such as Reiki and Sasa, which is another type of energy work that comes from the Native Americans. And I've also done things like colour therapy, crystal therapy, looked at nutrition, used muscle testing, and then animal communication, which is awesome. And so back to holistic animal care. So there's a whole range of things that make up holistic animal care. I'm going to start with water. So just like us, we've got a high percentage of our body is made up of water, and our animals are the same. I am generalising a little bit between horses, cats and dogs and small furries, but about 68% of their body is made up of water. So water is essential. We all fade without it. And there are different qualities of water, whether it be tap water or rainwater, spring water or magnetised water. There's all sorts of different sorts. Our own water is treated chemically. My dog and all of my cats absolutely turn their noses up at it and would much rather the water in the toilet or the puddled rainwater outside. And animals have this innate knowledge inside of them. They know what they need and they know what they want, and they will self-medicate as well. So water's essential. Nutrition, I'm going to touch a little bit. I mean, we could spend a whole week talking about nutrition, but I'm going to talk a little bit about nutrition. Essential, like us, what we put in comes out. Rest and sleep. I'm really cranky if I don't get 8 hours sleep a night. It doesn't always happen, so I might be a bit cranky in the mornings. And it's the same with our animals. If your animal has come out of rescue from a shelter in particular or a pound, they will be chronically deprived of sleep and rest. Very often they'll be without a voice and they won't have had the sleep that they need. Just as a little side really, our cats need between 12 and 16 hours of sleep. Dogs, between 12 and 14 hours sleep. And horses will just have 3 hours of deep sleep. They will nap in between that, standing up. But the deep sleep where the body repairs itself and they go into REM is only 3 hours. Now, if a dog or a cat or even a horse comes from rescue, they may not get that. That is when your body repairs. That's when your cells are able to repair themselves and recharge and restore, and also process all of the stuff that's happened in the day. So sleep is essential to holistic animal care. I put in here about love and environment. Love goes a long way to healing our animals and healing us as well. We've got some beautiful rescue doggies here today, and love is one of the key components of their recovery. And you know, especially with dogs, how much of that they give back to us. But environment is crucial. So some of the ladies here have touched on this today. If you've got small children and animals, you'll know just how much of an impact small children can have on an animal's emotional or nervous state. So I always think about the environment. Are there visitors coming in? Has the animal got somewhere where they can go and get away from this? Have they got space? Are there going to be lots of children? I mean, lots of children, quite high-pitched screaming noises. They don't always read body language. They want to go in for a cuddle and they miss things. So environment is very, very important. I will talk a little bit more about that. There are some key things to think about in our environment. Toxins are another part of holistic animal care, or rather the avoidance of toxins. So it's a combination of different things together that provides optimum health. So I'm just going to sort of touch on those subjects a bit more for you. So nutrition. Just going to talk about cats, dogs and horses. We'll just touch on those subjects. Okay, so our cats are obligate carnivores. They have to eat meat. In the wild, they'll go out and catch a rabbit or a bird or a mouse, and they'll eat the whole thing, the fur, the organs, the bones, the lot. And the combination of all of that provides them with the roughage, the proteins, and all of the extra things that they need. Cats, for instance, need taurine. They can't function without it. Taurine comes from the heart muscle. Taurine is also an additive in some really nasty fizzy drinks. It's a stimulant, but for our cats, it's an essential part of their well-being. Dogs are, they are carnivores. The exact word is scavenging. Now, you know, doggies have been really good here today, but there's all sorts of food. Given a chance, they will eat pretty much anything, sometimes to the detriment of their health. I have a rescue doggie he's from Bulgaria, and his first couple of years of life was spent fed on bread. He's on a raw diet now, but given a chance, he will snaffle any bits of bread on the pavement. If you go past the duck pond, he'll be after the breadcrumbs. It's not brilliant, it's not nutritionally great for him, but equally it's not going to do him huge amounts of harm from having a little bit. But what you really want to do is get a good balance. You're not going to feed your dog on cake all of the time. Horses and equines are grazers. We've had some touches from our homeopath earlier on about the browsing side of things. Now, in equine land, horses are quite different to donkeys. So donkeys need really rough grass. They can't cope on rich pasture at all. They need to be able to browse. Horses will do better on a limey soil, which produces really good quality grass. Not everyone has that option available to them, but looking for optimum health, there are certain things in the soil that will make the grass right for that animal. And in an ideal world, our horses would have access to hedgerows where they can browse and forage for the herbs that they want. When we go out riding, we're very much about putting the head up. They're not allowed to go and rummage in, and actually they're looking for the plants that they need to maintain that optimum health in their bodies. So I'm not here to slam any brands or really down the pet food industry, but I'm asking you, if you haven't already, start to educate yourself about the pet foods. If you want to get more information, there are some really, really, really great websites. The Truth About Pet Food is a really good site to go and look at if you want some support on this subject. And you can also look up, say, Dr. Karen Becker. She's a leading professional in the field who talks about nutrition and optimum foods for our animals. You will find, or in my experience, I have found that in the veterinary world, they aren't always pro-raw, and you may find you don't get the answers you want there. So you need to give yourself an education and look to other people for this. I'm just going to give you some pointers on pet food. So our high street foods from the supermarkets, read the ingredients. Most of what you read on the labels, you can't pronounce, and you definitely don't know what it is or where it came from. You will see things like derived from protein. What that actually means is the scrapings from the butcher's floor or the abattoir's floor, and it's skin, organs, bones, feet, teeth, brains. So yes, it is protein, but it's definitely not human grade. Would you rather feed your children healthy, organic, nutritious food that fills their body with the right ingredients to be full of vital energy, or give them absolutely nutritionally devoid foods or junk food all the time? Our animals are our babies, so why would we not think about this? I do understand that convenience is a factor, But what I'm actually promoting here is long-term health and being proactive in your animals being healthy rather than reactive to things that come up. So, when I met my husband, he had several Siamese cats that were addicted to a particular high street brand in a particular flavour, and they had some unpleasant side effects in the house. My husband was very tolerant of this, and I met him and said, I don't think that's right, and I'm pretty sure the diet's the reason why. What happens is the animals will get addicted to these foods. They're full of sugars, they're full of additives and really tasty things, like most amazingly tasty things, and not necessarily good for us and not good for them. And it took about a year to transition the Siamese over to raw and complete food that was not full of junk. But now we haven't got the undesirable symptoms. So we had diarrhoea, we had a lot of vomiting. If your cat, Dr. Karen Becker talks a lot more about this, in a lot more depth, but if your cat is vomiting, this isn't normal behaviour. It's not just a furball. Once or twice might be. Every day, every week, it's not. And a good place to start is to look at what you're putting in their bodies. And it's very likely that they have started to develop an intolerance, a sensitivity, or an allergy to the food or one of the substances in there. I'm a massive advocate for eating wholesome foods as close to source as possible. So if I want to eat a salad, a lettuce, I want to be, it looks like a lettuce. I chop it up, it still looks like a lettuce. It's not been uber processed. This is the same with our pets. Now, not everybody is in a position to be able to feed their animal organic, free-range, raw, for instance, but there are plenty of alternatives out there. If you can't feed them high-quality meats every day, look at alternating between a medium, instead of a really rubbishy food, a medium food, and then high-quality meats once or twice a week. Okay. Something else that's in our processed pet foods are lots and lots of grains. So it can be things like potato, corn, maize, wheat. Now in small quantities, these products aren't terrible for our animals, especially our doggies, but over the long term they can have a detrimental effect on their well-being. They can lead to things like diabetes. There has been a big rise in diabetes, and carbohydrates, when they're processed, turn into sugars and cause weight gain. They also cause dental problems. So going back to the Siamese cats that I met when I moved in with my husband, they all had awful teeth. Now the two that we've got left have got 7 teeth between them because they've had all of their rotten teeth taken out. Rather than have those huge vet bills, which we went through, take a proactive approach and feed your animals really good nutrition to avoid that building up in the long term. When we got our rescue doggy, I talked about him having been fed bread. All his teeth were yellow. He's only 2.5, so he's quite young and in okay shape. He needed building up a bit and training. But his teeth were yellow. So over the course of time, we put him onto raw and we gave him bones once or twice a week. Now his teeth are absolutely gorgeous white. And all that he's done is eat bones and they've cleaned his teeth naturally. Also ask you to look at the treats that you feed your animals. So quite often I talk to people and they feed their animals amazing diets and then they feed them utter junk for their treats. You can feed your animals amazing treats. There are some beautiful treats here, Waggy Tails. My doggy absolutely loves these. These are homemade. The ingredients, you know what they are. You can read the label and be confident that what you're feeding your animal is really good quality. Really think about what you're feeding your animals. I'm pretty sure no one here feeds their doggies rawhide, but that is one of the worst things to give your doggies because of the way it's processed. And actually, if you talk to vets, they will talk about the amount of dogs that they have to treat that have eaten rawhide and had an incident of blockage or a perforation from the rawhide. So it's looking at all things. Does your doggy like carrots, for instance? Could they be what you use as a treat? What about your cats? What about pieces of chopped up chicken rather than these processed, I call them cat crack, these little biscuits they go mad for. So think about the treats that you're giving your animals. And when you're thinking about animals, horses as well, feeding them endless amounts of polos, sugar cubes, it's going to have the same effect on their teeth. Now, there's a bit of a trend for brushing our animals' teeth or training your animal to brush their teeth, but that's actually really invasive. You're interfering with their natural well-being. There's not actually, if you provide them with a really good balanced diet, you will the need to brush their teeth is avoided. Okay. I've talked about that. Okay. So toxins. I really want to talk about toxins. So a lot of the foods that we've talked about, the pet foods with these non-human grade proteins in them, come from, well, we don't really know where they come from, but you can put your money on them being factory farm animals. They're not organic free-range animals. Then there might be a mix of that, but this is the waste on the floor. So those animals are raised in intensive conditions, pumped full of antibiotics and all sorts of other medications. Those things come out in their body. There's also the high stress levels with those animals. That energy is stored in the proteins that then get mashed up and turned into dehydrated foods or processed foods for your animal. Those toxins, as well as the additives that are put into the pet foods, are toxic for your animal. And for instance, with cats, you'll get something called toxic stacking. So the toxins just load up and they get to a point when they can't get rid of them. Cats are not very good at getting rid of toxins from their body. They're a lot more sensitive. Dogs are a little bit better at it, but they still get this toxic build-up. We even get that in ourselves, in our livers. And there are things you can do to cleanse your liver, and there are things you can do to help support your animals by avoiding those toxic build-up. I'm going to give you an example. So I rescued a cat back in the early 2000s, on the noughties, sorry, that's how you say it, isn't it? And she was 15. And she was a little grizzly old granny cat called Annie. And she had some kidney problems. I wasn't phased. I just wanted an old lady cat. And she started to go downhill. Now, at the time, I was really a big fan on cleaning my house with bleach. I used to bleach my house every single week. Bleach the floors, bleach the toilets, bleach the sink, bleach my hands. Went mad. And she started to go downhill. And I remember observing her the way that she ate. She would pick her food out of her bowl, put it on the floor and eat it really carefully. And as she went downhill, I thought, I'm pretty sure this is to do with her environment. So let's have a look at what's going on here. And as soon as I realised I had the mother's guilt, and I thought, I bet I know what this is, and I'm pretty sure I can do something about improving things for her. Why do I bleach the floor every week? It's not like I eat off the floor. That's a good observation. I don't rinse it afterwards. And she eats off the floor, so let's put in a little mat for her so she can pop her food onto her mat. And let's stop being so wild about bleaching the floor. Let's have a look at, a more holistic approach to how I look after my home. And I didn't just arrive here, it's been a continual journey. So I stopped using bleach the way that I had been using it. I didn't need to bleach my hands. I didn't need to bleach everything incessantly. I used a smaller amount and diluted it more and did it less frequently. And I also introduced things like lemon, bicarbonate of soda and vinegar with really hot water into my cleaning regime. I'm not eating off the floor. It doesn't need to be completely 100% ready to eat my dinner off. I eat that off a plate at the table. So I reduced what I was doing, and very, very quickly, Annie perked up. And she lived till she was 19. So I think a little change like that can really make a big difference in the home. So there are lots of other toxins that we have in our home that we aren't necessarily aware of, the impact that they might have on our animals. So there's a bit of a thing at the moment for these air fresheners. Not good. They're not good for the environment. And I don't know what happens to the waste, but I'm pretty sure that's not good for planet Earth either. But they spray out a little jet, To some people, they think that smells really amazing. I've got a super sensitive nose. I think they smell foul. But they are full of chemicals. Those chemicals are really bad for us, and they're really bad for our animals. I have heard a lot of people, dog owners, will say, oh, the dogs smell, so I have these air fresheners. Even the sticks with the oil in the bottom can be too much for our animals. Those chemicals in those air fresheners are hormone disruptors. So like us, we have an endocrine system. Our animals have an endocrine system too. And the endocrine system secretes a hormone into our blood. And they are chemical messengers that basically control everything. They are essential to our well-being. They tell us when to eat, when we're hungry, when we're thirsty, when to sleep, when to get up, when to be motivated, when to be a bit frisky, when to chill out. They control everything. And these chemical disruptors are all around us in our environment. People use a powdery substance to put on the carpet and hoover that, full of chemicals. Air fresheners, the products that we clean our clothes in, our animals' bedding, that we clean our floors with, as I've experienced, in the creams that we put on our skin, in our makeup, in our shampoos, on our hair, everything. The same with our animals. So I ask you to look, we've had some brilliant recommendations of some sites earlier today. Look up products that are really natural, contain ingredients that you can read, are not going to harm the environment, and are not tested on animals. Because you will find that you will be able to reduce toxins in your home, which will improve your animal's long-term health. So coming back to water, think about what you've got your water in, and what are you giving your animal their water in. So I've got another little case study. So one of the Siamese cats that came with my husband was a feisty little thing. She was called Tinker, tiny, weeny, itsy bitsy little tiny Siamese cat. But she had really bad runny tummy all of the time, not constantly, but she had a runny tummy. And I didn't know any holistic animal care people, I didn't know any animal communicators at the time, but I did know a kinesiologist. And I asked her to work with my cat, because I knew if I went to the vets it would be a particular route, and I wanted to try the holistic approach. She said that our dear little Tink was actually really, really, really sensitive, about 100 times more sensitive than the other cats in our home, so she would be really picking up on everything. But in particular, she was sensitive to plastic and electricity. So my husband and I sat down and we thought, right, we're going to have a look at what are we going to do about Tink's well-being. And we had a look at the environment. So the Siamese lived in the conservatory because it was really warm, but the conservatory is made of UPVC with a laminate floor. So there's all these toxins coming out. And her water was in a little plastic container. I don't know if you've seen these electric water filters. So plastic and electricity in a plasticky environment. So we moved her straight away to a ceramic bowl for her water. We put her in a cardboard box, and inside the cardboard box we put a wicker basket. So she had more natural products around her, and she could escape away from the conservatory. We couldn't do anything about the conservatory we lived in at the time. We've moved since then as well. But they've got a lovely environment now, but we had to make the best of what we've got. And that was a really simple way to deal with her sensitivities. And lo and behold, her runny tummy cleared up. And we were much happier about that, because cats' runny tummies are not pleasant. So have a think about the things that you're using to feed your animals, groom your animals, bathe your animals, and look at how you can reduce toxins in the environment. Okay. So how do I get it right in my practice? As I mentioned earlier, animals have a soul like us. Animal communication is often called heart-to-heart communication. So my soul communicates with their soul. And I recognise the individuality of every being that I work with, whether it's a person or an animal, and I treat them that way. No one case is exactly the same. It absolutely has to be on an individual basis. And I will ask the animal some very, very specific questions. Now, I'll put my money on it. If you asked a horse what it would like, it would tell you more polos, or apples, or sugar cubes, which is great. But what you want to know is what is right for it. So what is the right food for this animal? And what is the right food for this animal today, right now? And what is the right food as a supplement or in the winter? You have to ask very, very specific questions, because otherwise you'll get you'll get all sorts of random answers coming up. You will find using traditional Chinese medicine, they use a theory around hot foods that produce heat in the body and foods that produce a coolness in the body. In humans, a really healthy diet would be very alkaline, and a not healthy diet would be acidic. Disease will thrive in an acidic environment. Disease will not thrive in an alkaline. It's the same with traditional Chinese medicine. So cooler foods or cooling foods will produce optimum health, and heat will create the right environments for disease. So if you're looking for optimum health long term, then you need to be thinking about cooler foods or more alkaline foods and the holistic approach. I think I've covered all those points. Yes, okay. So one of the other things that is really, really crucial to a holistic animal care is we've talked about the environment, but it is access to the outdoors. So animals like us need vitamin D, and that comes from the sun. So a lot of working animals don't get the luxury of, they're quite often held in small containers or kept in cages or indoors, and they don't have free access to the outdoors. Given a chance, our cats will most of our cats are indoor cats, will line up on the windowsill and just flop out in the sunshine. The minute the sun comes out, our doggy wants to get out there and sunbathe. They know what they need, so it's just about giving them the right environment and access to the things that will give them optimum health. So that's it really for me. I wondered if you've got any questions. I could talk all week about this subject, but have you got any questions for me?
I was going to ask about the animal communication, like if you had any examples of maybe animals communicating.
Yeah, all sorts of things. So,
So it'd be interesting to hear an example of.
So
you went to see a pony or a cat.
So I recently went to see a horse that was very complex and had been being investigated for a number of issues around the stomach. And very, very recently went to see this horse. And I don't know anything about this person. They've contacted me, somebody referred them to me, and I've never spoken to them or their animal before. And within seconds, I just said, oh, whatever you do, don't put red near this horse. Whatever you do. This horse was very, very difficult on the ground, being 18 hands, potentially life-threatening. When in the saddle, quite good, quite well behaved, but it was on the groundwork that was problematic. And the animals don't like us. You've all been really good, but animals do not like us referring to them as being owned, the owner. So we always say the carer or the guardian. So the lady, the carer for this horse, she didn't let on anything that had happened, but I felt this like really bad bruise in my rump. Really, really bad bruise, and I got a really strong image of a sorry, darling, yeah, she's releasing. So I got a real a really big bruise on my bum and on my rump here, and a broom. And then when I focused on the broom, I got very quick. It's like a little video. Sometimes it's words, sometimes it's pictures, sometimes it's a video. I got a very quick video of the horse being hit multiple times, and it was like a megaphone in my ear of unkind words. So I said to the lady, I said, you mustn't use red near this horse. And at some point, he's had an impact here. I feel like his legs have gone under him, and there's a broom incident, but it's more than once. It's not in a livery yard with traditional stables in a run. It's in quite a big barn. I'm getting a sort of sense of being in a really big space. And the woman just said, you're absolutely spot on. That's exactly where this horse came from. That was his previous yard. He's been injured here. He's taken a fall. And yes, people have been heavy-handed with him in the past. Because of his size, they've used the broom to give themselves space, which I understand. But using a broom to give yourself space is not the same as using a broom to hurt an animal. So there's one example. I've got absolutely loads if you have a question about something in particular. But I work with...
I was curious, because I think animals are quite good at communicating with us, but we're not very good at...
We're not very good at listening. Yeah, absolutely. And very often, when we've got our own animals at home, but we do it with our instinct. I mean, I use my intuition. Intuition is the same as instinct. Other people call it gut reaction. Why did you go to that door at that time? And then, oh, surprise, your cat's there, soaking wet, been waiting to come in. Because they've communicated with you, like, come on, I've been shouting at you for the last 10 minutes. When are you going to hear me? I did have one instance of a horse that wouldn't communicate with me, which was quite hilarious. So, retired racehorse, and his carer had said to me, look, really, really curious, would you come and... So I went up to see this horse, and he's really curious, like, oh, hello. I'm not sure about this, and so I go through a little process. And he was like, you are kidding me, right? I've been talking to you humans for all of my life, and you come along? And he kicked dust in my face and ran off across the field. He's like, no way, absolutely not at all. I've had animals that have had problems with anxiety, and it's to do with their past, or it's to do with another animal that they're living with. I've had animals that have been rescued and they adapt into their new home. I've had animals that have been bereaved and they're trying to understand, a bit like us, their body, their 3D version of themselves, is trying to cope with the soul part that's left. They can understand where their friend's gone, but on the physical plane, they are struggling to cope with the grief. And everything in between, really. Thank you. Okay. Anyone else?
I just want to know what made you go into animal communication? Like, how did that work for you? Because you said it was an evolution. It was a journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So as a child, it happened and I dismissed it, totally dismissed it. But I've always been around animals. My first story I wrote when I was a kid was about a bird I rescued. My first job when I was 11 was in a pet shop, a really nice pet shop, by the way. They rescued loads of animals. It was pretty much a front for rescuing animals. And
and to give you a job.
Yeah, absolutely. And I shut it down when I got to my early teens. I remember having a conversation with my mum saying, you're really gifted and you're really psychic. What are you going to do with this? And I was like, I don't know, it's scary. So I shut it down. And then things happened. I'd go on a journey and the random three-legged dog would find me, or all the little kittens would find me. I travelled around the world, and everywhere I went, there were animals. I was in Madagascar. We were for 3 months. We were in the jungle, and I got a sense of like, oh, I'm not meant to be in here at all. Now, you could pick up on that. Any of us could pick up on that from our instincts or intuition. I was like, oh, not getting a good vibe at all, and I could hear, get out of my jungle. Get out of my jungle, yeah, totally. And I looked up, and this lemur straight away pierced straight into my eyes, and then defecated on my head, and I was like, right. But I put that... Yeah, I totally put that down to, oh, I've been in Madagascar away from electricity, I'm totally in touch with nature, I read the jungle. Like I did, no, not at all. But I was in denial for a long time. And then I got a rescue cat in 2012, and she very, very clearly, she was very upset when I stayed away overnight, and she would go to the toilet on my bed, and I could hear her voice in my head. I know it sounds weird. It gets weird.
She was leaving you a present.
Yeah. And she made it very clear, and I'd say, oh, like, why did you do that? I'm really unhappy. And I'm like, what? And she'd be staring at me with her huge big green eyes, like, oh, that's a bit weird. La 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 la. So I called in a kinesiologist to help me, and the kinesiologist said, you must talk to her and tell her why you're going away. She's got separation anxiety. She'd been dumped with pregnant, had her kittens in cat rescue, and the kittens all got rehomed, and she got left behind. She was 10 months old when her kittens left. She was a baby herself. And so I turned up, rescue her, but sometimes I'd go and stay at my boyfriend's, or I'd go away on a course, and she'd be like, what's this about? You know, I love you, but what's all this about? So she was letting me know she was unhappy, which I really got the message. But I didn't trust myself. And that was the biggest thing I've had to do is overcome that, trusting myself. So the kinesiologist said, you need to talk to her and reassure her and tell her what you're doing. I was like, talk to my cat. Right, okay, so I'll talk to my cat. And then I thought, well, actually, I always do the voice back to my animals. Most of the time, that was my animals channeling through me, but I just thought it was me answering my animals. But then I got an animal communicator in, and she confirmed what the kinesiologist had said. And she's like, you know that you can do this, and you know because you hear your cat, and then you see the eye contact that she makes with you, but you don't trust. Okay. So that was like, oh, okay, so it's possible, and it's possible I've got a gift. But I still didn't really trust it. And then I saw a video on Spirit the black cat. So if you haven't seen the video on YouTube, look it up. Spirit, or Diablo, the Black Panther. An amazing story. I cry every time I watch it. It's a happy ending. But I just thought, oh my gosh, this is a real thing. It's really possible. How do I learn? How do I use these? How do I bring these skills out of me that are already in me? And actually, every single person on this planet can do it. And we are born with our intuitive gifts, but as we get older, our logical brain takes over and says, no, you can't do that, you've made that up, don't talk nonsense. But actually, it's innate in all of us. And then I went on a professional development journey. And actually, I have to say, I think it's a lifelong apprenticeship. I don't think it's like, I'm done. Yeah. I think I'm never done.
When you think you've done,
no. So it's sort of been a 3-year journey so far of training and development, but there's more to come, absolutely.
So what's your next mission then?
Oh my gosh, well, I'm actually doing something called the Energy Alignment Method, and I start my mentor training next month. I know I'm at the edge, at the beginning, like here right on the edge of something very, very exciting. I don't know how that's going to come together, but I know I have to. It's the right thing. I know it's the right thing, and I know using my intuitive gifts is one of them. Is at the core of that, and embracing who I really am, which I didn't do for a long time. I hid behind that and did. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So watch this space. Thank you. Thank you very much.